Alright, so we're just gonna have ourselves a little hoopy-doopy fix-it video for the cooling system, because there's a lot of things that need a little bit of adjustment here and there. So, let's just go through it step by step. The main issues I'm having is that the fan doesn't come on early enough, and the cooling could be much better. So, our goals are just to improve the efficiency of all our systems and make sure that everything comes on when it can. Most of my issues have to do with high-speed cooling. Low-speed cooling really isn't an issue unless I'm really pushing this thing hard. So, for high speed, it's all about the airflow. So, if you will remember a while ago, I installed a custom little engine splash shield because I was trying to keep the mud and everything off the engine, trying to keep the engine bay just a little bit cleaner. Well, didn't work all that well. I mean, not that I know. It still got pretty dirty in there, so it wasn't great. It's this little guy right here. But one of the other worrying issues was airflow, and I'm pretty sure that this did affect highway airflow a little bit. I drove somewhere in a nice summer day, and the temperature was pretty high, and then I took it off for the way back, and it was, I think, 5 to 10 degrees lower. You know, same trip, same everything, just backwards. So I think that this is affecting high-speed airflow, and it also doesn't work all that well, so we're just going to scrap that for now. I may or may not come back to that, but for now, that's staying off. So that's the first thing out of the way. Now let's poke around with the electrical bits under the hood. Okay, so as an update for the fans that I've installed in here, I don't know if the Volvo one's pulling quite as much as I want. I'm not totally sure. The only thing I can think of is blocking off that bottom part. That might help suck a bit more, but I don't know. One of the main issues that I'm having, though, is that the high side of the fan and the second fan don't come on nearly as early as I'd like. The temperature switch that I have in there now, low comes on at 195 and high comes on at 210. But the problem is, by the time the water coming out of the radiator hits 210 degrees, the engine's at like 240. So that's not even close to acceptable. It's way too freaking high for that. So recently on long trips, or if I just need the extra cooling, I just wired this relay straight to ground, and then I just put the relay in when I need the fan. A much better solution would be to make a switch in the cab so I can just turn high on whenever I want. And if this new switch that I have doesn't help, I'm going to do that. Just so that I can, you know, turn them on when I need it. I might do it regardless, just so it's nice to have that extra backup, you know. Flip it to high when you feel like it's getting hot and you can control it. So, this switch right here is the other version of the BMW switch. This one, low comes on at 180, I believe, and high comes on at 195. So that way, because even the low, I feel like sometimes it comes on a little late. Sometimes it comes on right at 210. So I don't know. It's weird. A lot of playing with this and just figuring out how we want it to work. So I'm gonna put this switch in and we'll test that one and see. But it hasn't leaked or anything, and you know, when it does come on, it does work. So I don't know. I think it just needs a little bit of fine adjustment. Okay, so the hot switch was taken out, and the cold one was put in place. So we'll see if this one does any better. Now, I feel like this hot sensor would probably do really well up here in the thermostat housing, because 195 and 210, that'd be coming right out of here. So this would actually work really well, I feel like, coming from the hot side. But on the cold side, way too hot. So, you know, that's just a thought. Alright, I can't take this anymore. At first I didn't think it was going to be so bad, but now that I'm switched to the lower switch, this is just obnoxious. We're putting in a relay, so this thing only runs with the ignition on. Okay, so if you guys remember this one before from the switch video, this is going to be the updated solution. Down here off the switch is where I'm going to cut off the ground and add a relay. So we're going to have our 30 coming from the switch, 87 going to ground, 86 on the coil side going to ground, and 85 is going to come from ignition. Now, the nice thing is, back when we had this XJ fan relay, 85 I think came from ignition or something, or and we since took that out and made them both hot just so it you know, comes on whenever. So now we have this extra terminal over here, which is already connected to ignition. So this is our ignition terminal. Then all we can do is cut a wire and put everything together. This should take care of everything right here. So here's our second relay that we installed. Our orange is coming from ignition, and it is going straight through the coil of 85, leaving 86, going to white, which is grounding. And then all we did was we cut into the black wire that we originally grounded. I made that blue just so I knew that was the input. That goes into 30, since it's technically going in, and then 87 is the output, which is just the black, which goes to ground. So there we go. Now when we turn the ignition off, this should shut off, and when we turn it on, this should turn on, and that will complete the circuit to allow the fans to come on or off, so that way they don't run when the key is off. No more annoyances. Yay! Okay, we're back with this diagram one more goddamn time. I forgot that initially I was having issues with my secondary fan switch. Back in the wintertime, the second fan would never come on, and I traced that down to the orange wire being the issue, because this is supposed to be an ignition wire. So you figure, okay, you hook that up, and that way the fan only runs when the ignition's on and everything's okay. Well, for some reason, this will read ignition when it's running and when it's just in the run position. But for some reason, when you hook a relay up to it and then put it in, it'll trigger on and then trigger off. So I don't know if something's shorting out or if there's a different flow somewhere. I don't know what the hell it is, but this is one hell of a grumbling wire. So I decided to trace back and figure out what we can do about this situation. So this is the orange wire that we're dealing with right here. And there's a bunch of crap over here with a clutch diode, an air seat compressor, and it's connected to the in on something, and it's got an output to black and all this, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? So I'm wondering if maybe it flips the relay on and then realizes that there's maybe a better path to ground, or I don't know what the hell it's doing. But we're going to cut this little bugger out, and we're just going to go straight to yellow, because yellow is the wire that comes directly from the ignition. So now we're going to try this one. We're actually going to come from the switch, since there's already an open connection there, and just go from the switch to our relay. So what that means in real life, down here is our fan switch, and the wire on the left is the yellow wire. That is our ignition. So I have since split this, because before I just had it jumped. So now I cut it, and then our yellow wire is going to run and be the feed for this relay. So now this motherfucker should work. If it doesn't, I don't know what to do. But in case it doesn't work, we got a backup plan. I got a jumper set up so we can jumper the ground back together. This is also a low current right here, so you know it doesn't even matter how thick this is. So since this cover came off, we can see what the hell the relay is going to do, and we'll test it. Alright, so if everything works properly, you'll notice that there's a little diaphragm over here. The way this works, these relays work, there's a coil right here, and when you run a current through it, it creates a magnetic field, and it physically sucks this switch closed. But it'll close and make contact, and that's what turns your switch on. So if everything works, we should see that closed. So let's go turn the ignition to run. If you come over here, it's in the closed position. Cool. Now the issue I was having with that orange wire is the second you go to start it, it would open. So let's start it. Alright, still closed. I think we should be set now. Now our fan should work properly and turn off with the ignition off, but we'd have to get this thing up to temperature to find out. So, we'll see when we see. Let's hope that this is the end of that. Okay. So, next on the list is going to be addressing this fan. I have noticed that it's not really doing quite as much as I was hoping for. So, I got one more trick up my sleeve that I want to check on this. And that is going to be this giant opening over here. I'm pretty sure that that's causing me to lose quite a lot of suction. So I am going to box this off now so that everything comes out of the radiator, and maybe we should actually get some pretty decent stuff out of it. So the only thing I gotta look out for is if we sit even at this, you'll notice that the fan sticks out farther than the shroud, so I might have to box it out a little bit, but we're gonna try and cover that hole, and hopefully this fan will do a lot more sucking out of the parts we need. Okay, so after a lot of cardboard cutouts, this is what we got. So it's a flat piece of metal with a slight bend in it here because this part in the front has to stick out. So it has to stick up like that. And then I just have a corner piece on each side. So that way the fan has clearance. So if it wasn't for that fan bulging out, we could just put a flat piece on there and call it a day. So this thing will come up here, like so. There you go. So that should block everything underneath and focus all the sucking through the radiator instead of being lost out the bottom. And it'll just get bolted with the bolt at the bottom. Hopefully it doesn't rotate. We'll call it good. Okay, so we get it all bolted down. So let's give it our first test run. Sounds like we got some tappy-tappies below. We'll have to check clearances. I'm willing to bet it's something to do with that gap up there. So we shouldn't have that much of a gap. It should be a lot closer to the radiator. So maybe we'll just have to bow the inside out a little bit. Okay, so now to check efficiency the poor man's way, just put your hand behind the fan and feel where the sucking's coming from. So we're losing a little bit right here. I can feel that. We're losing a little bit in this corner over here, just a little bit. But we're not worried about that right now, we're worried about the bottom. So if we come down here, I don't feel much of anything here. Feels really good. There's a little tiny bit out of this little crevice. That's nothing to really worry about. And there's a little bit from this hole back here. But I couldn't really do much about that. So that is a whole lot better than what it was. So now it's not sucking any air down here, it's all focused on the radiator. And that's a nice little breeze coming. So that might help just a little bit. But it is good to know that we're losing a little suction here. That's mostly covered by the hood. And a little bit from here. Sweet. Alright, well, I said that the under shroud is pretty well successful now. So now all we gotta do is test the damn thing. Okay. So I got to run this system for a while and it's doing better. So this thing shuts off with the ignition now, which is really cool. I'm happy about that. Everything works. So we found out that this orange wire is just a little bugger, and running straight from the source was a much better idea because it skips all that diode bullshit. So now we got good stuff there, and all the fans come on right, and that fan does better. So we are getting more suckage from the proper areas. So I'm happy with that. The little under shroud thing is holding up well. But this thing is still getting hot, and now it's starting to become less of a highway issue, and sometimes even, you know, just going like 40 miles an hour, we're starting to get cooling problems. Now one thing that I can try, and I will try, is to try and clean out the radiator fins, because this has a lot of dirt in there, and a dirty radiator will not you know, remove heat as efficiently as a clean one. But I don't think that that's going to be my entire issue. I think it's more than just the radiator. That one, we're going to have to step up to something bigger. This is still the stock one core radiator. It's a 1 row 1 inch core, so it's got a big core in it, but it's only a 1 row, and we could get a lot more capacity with aftermarket. So might be looking into another radiator. Other issue is just blockage in general. I have a dirty cooling system. Like, yeah, it's green, but there's a lot of crap in here. So we might be looking into some kind of filtration system to get all the crap out of here, because normal flushes are not doing it. Because every time I take those hoses off, that heater core is dirty, man. It makes a good filter. So yeah, we're not done here yet, but we're getting closer.